On the bench today, I have an evening dress that was worn by an Irish-American railroad heiress in 1908, designed by Charlotte Duclos. Features gelatine sequins, which were quite a common decorative element used in the early 20th century to take over from metal sequins, which could often be heavy, and they were also more expensive to make. So for about 40 or 50 years, gelatin was really common because it was lightweight, still very reflective, and cheap to make. But it also had a lot of drawbacks, such as melting or deforming, dissolving in humidity and heat. A combination doesn't go down very well for sweat. So you can see under here that the sequins are deformed. She obviously had a good time while she was wearing this dress. You wouldn't have been able to clean these dresses very easily, as any kind of water was going to be problematic. So it likely wasn't worn very often. There's actually not too many have snapped along here. There are some areas of loss throughout the skirt, throughout the train, perhaps from sitting down, or just the movement of it will cause the sequins to scratch across each other and break. Some of them are quite brittle. But here you can see that the humidity and the heat from sweat in the underarm cause these to fold and deform. This area is completely stable. It doesn't need any kind of treatment to be safe for display or for inspection, and this is also kind of a nice sign of its use. The housekeeping staff of the heiress who owned this dress, they wouldn't have been able to use water to clean it, or certainly not for very long, possibly with a slightly damp cloth and then a dry cloth over the top. There was a sample of a sequin that was already detached from the dress, and I did carry out some cleaning tests. It does take a while for it to dissolve in water. I'll likely use a dry microfiber cloth when the dress is on display in the exhibition on the day, and I'll give it a bit of a dry wipe. This dress actually has 3 types of lining, which you can see here. There's some tulle up here, which is just to give a little bit of support and to help the dress slip on to the wearer, but it's also quite transparent and it doesn't really show through the sequins here at the area of most focus, most decoration. But you can see here that it's really quite deteriorated, really quite damaged. There are some areas where it's been lost completely. So what I've done here is I've stabilized the original tulle with some layers of couch stitching, and then I've put over this layer of new bobinette to protect what's there against abrasion, and also just to give the dress a bit more structural support. We then have this cream silk lining, which has also deteriorated a little bit. There are some areas of loss, and quite a lot of the lining has broken along the binding with the back closure, as this will be the bit that's most readily handled, trying to get the dress on, and also will take quite a lot of the strain. Because we will be putting this on and off a mannequin, I'd like to reinforce this and make sure that we don't get any more tearing or any more loss. So what I'm going to do is insert some new silk crepeling inside the lining, and then stitch the original silk onto the new support. This dress was produced and is very indicative of the fashionable S-bend shape, which was created by custom and specific corsetry that encouraged the top of the torso, the shoulders and the bust to be pushed forward, with a very flat front, very specific straight line down the front of the body, and then also encouraged the rear and the hips to be pushed back. Throughout the 1800s, corsetry was going through different changes of fashionable body shapes, and then from this period on it does start to loosen through to the 1920s and 30s. We get a bit more of a fitted shape in the 1950s, and then throughout then till present day you see underwear changing to become much less restrictive. We definitely have to worry about the sweat from our hands when we're handling textiles in general, but it's a particular concern with this dress due to the humidity and heat sensitivity of the gelatin sequins. When handling discharge dresses in general, I would always make sure to wash my hands regularly and to make sure when I'm working on the dress my hands are thoroughly dry as well as clean. and I'll probably wash my hands every 20 minutes, half an hour or so. For something like this, I might also considered using gloves, but the kind of work that I'm doing with the sewing, and I felt that the dexterity in my hands was more important than any kind of contaminants coming off my hands. This dress has a very low neckline, and it also has a sort of cold shoulder design, which is difficult to see while it's flat. But it has these little bars, these little rosettes of flowers in the beading and sequins. Instead of having full length arms, I'm just going to make little shoulders to highlight the shape of this cold shoulder design and to support the sleeves. We're really just doing that for an interpretive look, and I won't need the full arm length, as I think that might detract from the really incredible silhouette that this dress has once it's on its fitted mannequin. All of the interventions I'm making to this dress are simply to protect it and make sure that it's able to withstand the rigours of going on and off mannequins, but also for handling by researchers after the exhibition is completed. And so this will make the dress more accessible to anybody who wants to come and see it, both at the exhibition and later in the store. I like work like this, where we're stabilizing quite a functional element of the dress. One of the great things about mounting these pieces for display is that it's so much easier to interpret how they were worn and imagine the impacts that they would have had on people seeing them, and also on the people wearing them.